Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I'm with the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and I'm joined with my colleague Ryan Eustace.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today.
And he is the economist for the department, and also we have an esteemed guest here that's joining us, and that's Rich Brown, the director of the Economic Development Department for the University.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We invited him here to share his perspective. But basically, we wanted to have a webinar today to talk about opportunity zones and really get into a discussion around it, let you have a chance to ask questions if you have questions. This is a follow-up to our opportunity zone webinars that we have engaged in, an opportunity zone webinar series. So we're looking at posting these webinars as recorded. And if you attended our Opportunity Zone forum, that was a good place to meet in person, and this webinar is a chance for us to follow up and provide additional information. And hopefully this one, now we've been in the program for a year, around a year, closing out 2019, and want to see if you have any questions. So you can type questions in the right hand portion of your screen. It's a little gray box. So unfortunately, we don't have it so you can ask them audibly. But just go ahead, type the questions in, and we'll get to those as they come up. Oh, someone was saying there's another flowers. Can't really hear. That would be that comment. Okay, so let's stop. We're not going to use this microphone. We're going to switch and use a telephone call. So if you guys can pause for 1 second, we'll switch the audio. Thanks for letting us know. Okay, I think that we're connected. If we are connected, I know Deborah has been typing in in Concepta too. If you can hear us, can you go ahead and confirm that is this better? Much better. Okay, great. Thank you all very much for letting us know. And glad to see that the chat feature is working. So let me step back. I'll just go ahead and begin again. But just want everybody to be on the same page that these webinars are part of our education series. We want to help bring awareness about opportunity zones, bring updates to our communities in New Mexico and open it up for discussion. We, as we're out in the field, we get plenty of questions, plenty of feedback about what's going on. So hopefully today we can kind of use this format to use it as a round table and let's talk about challenges or things that are working. So we did want to provide a little bit of background in case you weren't at the forum that we hosted in August, I think it was. This is obviously a map you can see on the right-hand side of our opportunity zones. We have 63. And how many tribal tracts?
We have 7 tribal tracts located throughout the state, and one of the tracts that is not considered tribal is actually a parcel of land that is owned and operated by multiple tribes. So they've looked at possibilities and explorations around that as how they can do a joint venture with between the tribal entities to develop that land.
Great, and actually our map has been updated. So if you are interested in looking at the tribal tracts, they're highlighted in purple. So this image hasn't been updated, but you can go see that. But we still get questions, even though that we're in a year into the program, about how we picked the tracks. And do you want to go ahead and?
Yeah. So
Sure.
again, we worked a what we considered at the time and right now as well as a grassroots approach, where we allowed the communities within the counties to work themselves to work from the ground up, and then from the county up to the state level, in which we were able to compile the list and allow the governor at the time to make the final designations of those zones. We have received actually quite a bit of phone calls recently around people believing that you are able to change the tracks, or that there is a legal exploration that they can do to move the track itself from a non-qualified to a qualified zone. Just so we're clear, according to the law that was passed by Congress and signed by the president, that is not going to happen. The tracks are set in stone the way they are, and it would take another act of Congress to then create or extend the program itself going forward.
Great. And just to highlight kind of New Mexico Economic Development's role at the state level, we identified 3 sectors that we could be most effective at helping communities with opportunity zones. And these are the sections that we highlighted: education, so that's in the form of these webinars, providing resources on our website, and then doing the forum. So we hosted one forum in August, and that was kind of like an introductory networking opportunity. And the next one, we'll talk about it a little bit later, will be in March, and we're going to look at that one as more of kind of a connector forum. But technical assistance, that's where we're able to manage our interagency task force called Fund It. And then also you can use New Mexico Economic Development as kind of an entryway into different resources that can offer technical assistance. And then our main role that we've really been busy at is just that connector role, providing the connections to resources. That's where we're maintaining the pipeline of projects. We have the email list, the fund list, and then as well the interagency task force. So all of these places where we're working is obviously targeting the different audiences: businesses, investors, communities, partners, all of these folks that have interest in opportunity zones. So unfortunately, and we say unfortunately, we talk about this a lot, but we don't have one dedicated staff person to work on opportunity zones. It's between myself and Ryan, who have other roles and responsibilities. So that, this is our attempt to be as effective as possible.
And that's one of the things too that our department has really tried to take hold of. And I'm jumping ahead here when we start talking about things that we've been doing and things we've been seeing, but it is that individual who's able to connect the business or the project to the investors. We start to kind of see those groups start to form, and having that person to really push it over the top has been what our agency is focused on going forward. And even greater than just the connecting piece of deal and investors, looking at different grant fundings that are available that we could help stack capital onto to make the project just that much more better.
All right, and we did want to highlight, hopefully re-highlight, the way that you can use our Opportunity Zone map. This is located on our website. You can get there either through going to New Mexico Economic Development, or you can just go to nmopportunity.com. But there you can search for a specific address, or you can just geographically scroll down. But each one of those zones is highlighted. You can click that, and it will take you to a list of projects that have been identified. And when you get to the project pipeline, this is a pipeline that we are actively maintaining. Every project that is submitted to us, we're putting this on the project pipeline. And then it shows what project type it is. It gives some basic demographic information, some basic financial information, and then contact information too. But this is really key to remember if you do have projects
submit them online, and use this as a marketing tool too when you're talking to funders or potential folks that might be interested in projects. They can easily access all of the projects. We wanted to re-highlight again our interagency task force. This is our funded group. This is a really unique, what we've seen, at least looking nationally, this is a unique organization that really gives New Mexico a leg up when we are talking about financing a project. So Funded currently has around 15 federal and state agencies, along with Council of Government Directors, our regional reps, nonprofits, community foundations, any organization with funding power that is interested in economic development and community development projects. This is a fantastic way to collaborate with other agencies with funding, leverage different funding sources, get feedback about where to go for funding, get brainstorming. You have pretty much the experts in this realm that can discuss how to fund your project. So this group meets quarterly, but anytime that you submit an Opportunity Zone project to our portal, you have the option of presenting that project in front of the Interagency Task Force. So we'll get into it a little bit later, but a lot of these federal programs, as well as state, have initiatives, and they're very active and very hungry to target projects that are in Opportunity Zones. So it's a great way to just, in one swoop, connect with all of them at the same time. So don't forget about Fund It. Let us know if you have any questions about that. So we wanted to give some updates about what's happening around the state, and you want to jump in?
So, goodness, a few months ago we released during that forum that we had in Albuquerque the Opportunity Zone Jobs Bonus run through our LEADA program, and recently we announced the first recipient of that program being Kairos Power out of a relocation to the state of New Mexico. It is a rather large facility in which an investment is going to take place of roughly $125 million. They're going to be hiring about 65 people, and those people will be making a salary on average of about $100,000 to $120,000 a year. So this was the type of project we were looking to really stimulate the Opportunity Zone projects. From that, we've actually received a lot of requests through federal agencies on how are we tracking this, are we looking at ways in which to improve this, and going back to our jobs bonus, it allows us to collect that information that we are able to then track success of the program, track success of specific Opportunity Zones themselves, and continue to improve upon what we believe is already a great project. With that Kairos Power LLC, and this may speak to a larger audience of some of the trends that we've been seeing, is some of these projects that are coming in, they have already set up their fund and they're doing it themselves. They're not so much looking for investors to take place in these in a larger scale project of $200 million for a specific manufacturing facility of some sorts. But we have started seeing the community development aspects start to come around. And those are the ones where the community development is beginning to look for the local funders or the Opportunity Zone funds to help connect them to a multitude of investors in different projects around the area or around the state themselves. And I believe Fund It's kind of taken an approach of that. We recently met with a few federal agencies who were highlighting what they thought was a great program in Fund It, and as do I.
All right, great. Ryan already kind of mentioned this as well as I did, but there is talk to look at bringing on a coordinator or an Opportunity Zone czar is kind of how it's known. But the purpose of this would be more to take a project manager role on, someone that could really be spearheading the coordination between finding funding and working with all of the folks to develop a project. So that's something exciting that we are looking at. Something that we have been seeing too around the state is communities creating a clearinghouse or a mapping tool that allows them to show potential investors all the different incentives that are available, as well as mapping their different projects or different zones, different incentives. And so that has been really exciting to see, and Rich is going to go into that a little bit more. And then I think Ryan mentioned it too, but within Fundit, because we are connecting with federal agencies, we've been meeting with a lot of regional directors representing federal programs like EDA, SBA, HUD, that are very eager to participate in Opportunity Zone projects. So they've been sharing kind of some best practices from around the country and are ready to go. So again, Fundit is a really great entryway into connecting with those different agencies.
And to add on to that and kind of look at the state trends of, New Mexico that we're seeing, and we meet with regional partners, whether it's in Colorado, Arizona, to discuss what's going on in our state. One of the things that, again, keeps getting highlighted is our access to some of the projects that other states don't have the ability to know what's going on in their areas. So through this Fundit, we're able to see those community development projects and see what's going on and share our practices that has worked best with other states. And again, like with Kairos Power, being able to point to those large-scale projects to show here's what they came in and here's what they were looking for, while other states have an issue really mapping it out and understanding their assets. And so bringing in partners like Rich themselves to really have that community level approach.
So one of the things that gets brought up when we're talking to communities is much like what's happening to us on the state level, that maybe it's one person in a department. Maybe a community is lucky to even have an economic development department, or it's just someone that they got the designation to deal with this. So there's a lack of capacity. So we wanted to really make sure and highlight the technical assistance resources that are out there. This list is available on our website, but really want to point out that there are some organizations that are out there, and the top few are national. But for example, the Governance Project that we had a webinar with back in September, I think it was, this is a nonprofit that's available to help communities for free. And we did reach out to them and ask them if anyone from New Mexico has contacted them, and the answer was no. So this is a missed opportunity for sure. They're ready to go. They're eager to help. They have put out some really great resources on their website. One of them is the Toolkit for Municipalities. You can access that. I didn't put the link on here, but they just put out something like an 80-page document about kind of looking at a place-based approach to the emerging market. But they highlight 429 zones all over the country that are ripe for investing. And it's not just getting market rates. They're not just looking at that. They're highlighting the ability to get a market rate return and also have a socially impactful project. And actually, Albuquerque, I think, Albuquerque has a couple of spots on there. But just want to reiterate, they're a great resource. It's free, as well as Accelerator for America, Economic Innovation Group, Milken Institute. The National Development Council is worth looking at as well. And EDA and HUD, those two federal agencies, also have technical assistance. So reach out to them, shoot them a call, shoot them an email. Let's utilize these technical assistance resources. Also here in New Mexico, the three that we highlight is Grow New Mexico, Invest US Opportunity Fund. I saw Deborah Burns was on she's on the call with us, and then CE Lab. And I didn't mention we're going to send this out to you so you'll have these links. But reach out to them. Any other ones that you can think of?
I would say the federal agencies have really played a larger role of late in reaching out to states to kind of see what is going on. If you guys are following what is going on from a funding perspective at the federal government, there's been large amounts of funding that have been pushed into these programs, EDA, HUD, SBA, and they all have a component of scoring that is related to the opportunity zones themselves. So they're looking to get their money out into these opportunity zone projects, and in particular into New Mexico, to really start seeing their dollars come into the state and start working, because we do tend to lag behind other states when it comes to accessing this specific type of funding.
And I do want to point out that Carl just said, why isn't Invest New Mexico not under New Mexico? We now have multiple opportunity zone funds. And sorry about that, Carl, but we will add that for sure. This list, we can definitely update it, and want to make it a point that Invest New Mexico is definitely an opportunity zone fund that has been created in New Mexico. I know it's on our fund list. We just haven't put it on our technical assistance resource. So I know this list is not it's not comprehensive. So and feel free as we're talking, just like Carl did, point out different resources that you're familiar with. This is meant to be a discussion. So thanks for pointing that out, Carl.
And I think Carl highlighted a very good point that Joanna and I have been stressing all along is we took a grassroots approach when we were designating these zones, and it is very hard to implement that in the reverse directive back down to those grassroots. So there is a collective of individuals who need to help move projects along, and the reliance on the state can become sometimes burdensome to a few individuals. So we do love that technical assistance, not only coming from the state and city resources like Rich, but also from the private sector as well. So thank you.
All right, moving on. Another trend, obviously, that we're seeing, that this trend never dies, is where to find funding. We have heard from numerous projects or communities. How do we connect with investors? Where do we find money? Where do we go? So want to highlight funds that are available. Obviously, just visiting that idea that if you are going to make an investment into an opportunity zone project, it has to come from an official opportunity zone fund. And there's a few places that you can go online to get an ongoing active list of opportunity zone funds. And sites like Invest Real, which help match investors and projects in opportunity zones. We have a list of opportunity zones on our website. Novogradic, I think, is the website, and I think that's the one that's listed here. You can go to, we have our New Mexico finance resource map, where that is kind of unique in the way that you can filter through different components of a project. So if it's transportation, community development, business development, you can find different funding agencies that apply to your need. You can contact us. We'll help kind of walk you through some ideas. And then obviously we have a DFA, Department of Finance, has a catalog of local public assistance programs. So this is kind of the gamut. This is not just looking at opportunity zone funds, because I think we've all acknowledged that at this point you're not going to get, I don't think it's typical to just get one fat check from an investor into your project. It's going to come from a different variety of sources. And so this is a list that you can access different different sources.
And one of the things too is when communities or projects themselves are looking for funding or looking for technical assistance, is that due diligence that the investor does on a project, sometimes the community must do on the fund itself to make sure that not only what they're getting is what they're asking for, but that it makes sense. We've received phone calls, and I may sound like a broken record repeating this, but from communities who have questions where they are getting phone calls from funds saying, please hire our fund, we will get your community into a census tract that is designated. So things like that where a little due diligence on the community side or reaching out to the finance team or myself to ask for that assistance and a little due diligence the reverse way can go a long way in not only identifying, one, if this fund itself is legitimate, but more importantly, if it's an actual realizable goal that can be achieved.
All right, so we wanted to introduce Rich Brown with the City of Santa Fe, Director of the Office of Economic Development, and he is going to give us kind of their perspective on the ground, in the field. What are they doing around opportunity zones, and share some of their insight into working directly with them. So
this is a great chance for communities to ask a lot of questions. When we were meeting with a lot of the federal agencies, they were really highlighting what the City of Santa Fe has done in terms of mapping their assets, as well as taking an educational approach down at the grassroots level, something we're trying to do as well. So please feel free to ask questions, type them in, jump in whenever you have them.
Great, thank you, Ryan. And so again, Rich Brown, I work at the City of Santa Fe, and my presentation is really going to be about how our city sort of develops our census tracts and zones, how we educate to our community and our stakeholders and our investors and developers, and what we're doing to prospect to see if we can get some action in the City of Santa Fe. So I want to start off by saying we have 5 zones, and I'm sure you saw the map that Johanna put up there earlier. We're basically a speck in the state, but we do have 5 census tracts in our city, and we're actively trying to make sure that we can put a signal out there that we're ready to put some development there. So I wanted to show you our tracts, and this is on our website and how we identify them. The census tracts actually have very long numbers, but we just take the last 4 to designate them as a number. So my next couple of slides really is just steps to help you develop your opportunity zone plan. This is how we've developed ours, and you can take some or take all, but just wanted to share with you how we've developed our opportunity zone plan, and hopefully this will be helpful to you, and you can always send me an email and I can answer any of your questions. I've talked to a couple of other of my colleagues around the state, so hopefully this will be helpful. So first and foremost,
hey, Rich, a quick question, something that the state's kind of looked at is the inventory of existing plans. How have you taken your inventory of existing plans and overlaid them onto opportunity zones themselves?
There's 2 layers to this inventory of existing plans. One is what you find on NM Opportunity. If other cities have development plans, or if the city has a fund itself, or the city has land they're trying to develop, then we go to nmopportunity.com to look to see if there's any existing plans there, to see if there's anything that we can replicate. And 2, we are also looking at our census tracts to say, are there any shovel-ready projects that are in the next step? Do they need funding? Do they need zoning laws changed? Do they need technical assistance? So that's where we look at existing plans. There's sort of 2 maps to that from an existing plan standpoint. So looking on the state website to see if any cities are doing things that we could replicate, and then 2, we look within our city from our commercial realty audience or our developer audience and see if there's anything there that needs to be pushed to be more strategic. That work? So let me go back to the development, select your department lead. That, I think, is the most important thing. I think the folks on the call, hopefully, if you're working in an economic development department or an agency, that would be your first step to really starting an opportunity zone plan. Find your lead. That person should shepherd this from beginning to end. And keep in mind that the Opportunity Zone program currently is a 10-year play. Yes, we're supposed to have lots of funds setting up before 2019, but every investor has 10 years to make profit and to get that tax advantage over the next 10 years. So keep in mind, if you haven't selected a lead, find one who you believe will be your ambassador for your city. Next from that, Ryan earlier mentioned that the zones have been qualified and certified by the U.S. Treasury. So what we did was we looked at our census tracts and then made them marketable titles. So if I went backwards, I could talk about our census tract titles. So 1002, we call that the Hopewell Man. It's full of dense housing, but we also know there's a community uplift that needs to be there. 1103, that's our Midtown district. We have a 64-acre property that's in the process of a redevelopment proposal phase, so we're looking from that standpoint. 1202 is our creative economy district and our industrial district, so we're looking at those two categories to find opportunities for business growth and manufacturing there. 1302, everyone's heard of Meow Wolf. They actually have a big manufacturing plant down there, and so we're looking to figure out how we can help them bring their synergistic partners to Santa Fe and build an innovation community there, plus put housing there because most of the people commute back and forth. The last one, that's 1304, that's kind of our open land. We just recently, it had been annexed, and so the landowners are just getting on board with trying to figure out how they can create a development or a master plan in some of the properties that are there. So that's what we're doing about marketing our zones. When we figure out what we're going to market our zones and title them, we also sort of try to identify our internal and external stakeholders. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but I just want to let you know that there are two types of stakeholders that can help you when you have this lead. So it's not really just you doing it by yourself. We talked about the existing plans. Again, work with the Economic Development Department of the state. And then one of the other things I think is when you're creating your plan is that there's a link here that you'll get a copy of their presentation. If you go to Enterprise Opportunity 360, each of your census tracts has a 80 to 90 page demographic, data-rich census overview that you could use right now. You could just download it as a PDF and put it on your website, and you're about halfway there in your zone plan. But you can go to Enterprise Opportunity 360, pull down your census tracts, get a great example of what's there so that people start asking questions about your census tract. You can start there. What's the unemployment rate? What's the poverty rate? How many houses are there? What are the housing trends? What is the population trends? All of that information is there at your fingertips, so you don't have to really look any further. And then also, I said creating your plan is work with your external partners for applicable grants. That's foundations and some of the federal agencies that Ryan mentioned. And then also, we mapped our census tracts to our GIS, and we put it on our webpage so that people would know they can click on the GIS map of the census tracts and learn more.
So, Rich, you highlighted Enterprise Opportunity 360 in the website, how it gives you an enrichment of data, in particular to a census tract that is designated as an opportunity zone. Have you worked with that data to help build that plan to make sure the right development is coming in, or the person who is asking about a specific census tract, that the match is there?
That's a good question. We have looked at that data, and we looked at it from a standpoint of the city of Santa Fe is trying to figure out how to diversify the economy, so we're looking at our industry clusters. So when we look at this data, we want to know about the food industry, the outdoor industry. We want to know about the film industry. We want to know about other industries, healthcare, et cetera. So that data puts a lot of that there so that if someone calls us that's looking to relocate to Santa Fe, we can then share that data from Enterprise 360 as a way to do it. If a developer is wondering about this shovel-ready project in the land, this data is helpful for them as they do their diligence to look to see how they pencil it out. So those are some of the ways that we use this data onto the website, where some interested parties are interested in what the census tracts have to offer and what are the trends in that space as a way to invest in it. Next, the Opportunity Zones, as you probably know, really is about a long-term investment in community uplift. And so as we looked at our census tract, we tried to figure out what the strategic community need was for each tract. and our city has a deficit of housing. So for us, housing is the most important opportunity for us in the city of Santa Fe. So when we talk about shovel-ready projects, we talk to developers, we talk to realtors, we talk about how to build housing in any of those census tracts. We also know that healthcare, because of our data that we've collected, that we have kind of a bubble of very a large aging population. And in the next 5 years, if we don't address the healthcare needs of our aging population, we are going to be in trouble. That includes having enough nurses and doctors who will be in Santa Fe to attend to that need. So the data helped us inform that not only do we need workforce housing, market rate housing, and healthcare housing, that we also need to figure out in our other industry sectors, what else do we need as it relates to housing inside of those neighborhoods. Next one was small business expansion. We looked at our Midtown area. We looked at our Meow Wolf area and said, as I talked about earlier, we're trying to build synergies where their business partners can come to town and work with Meow Wolf. We'd like them to stay here. We'd like them to set up offices here. So the other play for us is how do we build innovation centers? Things like co-working spaces, incubators, or commercial food kitchen in some of these spaces, and then leverage some of the grant opportunities from some of the federal agencies that are out there. The next one was Main Streets and Community Land Trusts. We don't really have any Main Streets in Santa Fe, but one of our census tracts, which I mentioned at the top, Hopewell, is has a lot of high poverty statistics, and so one of the things we're working on with foundations is that maybe they could buy that land to help people rent to own or beautify the neighborhood or find ways where they can use impact investing dollars to uplift the community. So that's what we use for the community land trust piece. Other things, I think Ryan really and Johanna really talked about this. One of the things I would want to add is Department of Transportation. They are also looking at ways to spur economic development. So that might be an area that you would look at in your city, especially if you're trying to grow your city and attract businesses. Sometimes your roads and your modes of transportation could be ways where you could see where someone who's coming in with a big manufacturing operation might need an off-ramp. So the Department of Transportation is a good place to just talk about your city's master plan. The other one that I don't think they mentioned was your local congressional delegation. I think that your counselors, your local reps, state reps, your local senators all have opportunities or have an interest in community uplift, especially the legislatures, which has capital outlay that comes every year. So you want to reach out to them to see if there's some project that you'd like to find some grant money for a capital stack. They might be able to add to that through their capital outlay that they put forth coming up next month. Again, federal agencies, I think Ryan reviewed this. The one thing I'd like to add to this is that I met with some of the folks from the Revitalization Council, and they informed me that the U.S. Treasury is about to release a new revision of their guidelines for opportunity zones. They're hoping to have it by the end of the year. To me, that's translated to about January 30th of 2020. So just FYI that the Treasury is about to release some new guidelines based upon public input. But all of these agencies I've had conversations with about how I can leverage any grants they may have, how I can leverage any technical assistance they may have. We also have reached out to our federal representatives to see if there's anything they can do to help the state of New Mexico and the city of Santa Fe. I spoke earlier about internal and external stakeholders. These folks are very important to your department lead or your opportunity zone lead as you relate to creating this plan. Talk to your land use planning and zoning folks. Talk to the affordable housing people. Talk to your public utilities folks and your GIS team. So I think you want to make sure that you figure out ways to be able to show your zones and connect in with potential investors, potential partners. And so the GIS team is your first step to build a map that you can put on your web page and just label that page opportunity zones for your city, and then just use the map and the Enterprise 360 data, and then tell us a story about your census tracts. What is the need there? What is the city trying to do? What is your community trying to do? those internal stakeholders can help you with that. External stakeholders are foundations and impact investors. I talked a little bit about that. Commercial realty associations, again, the state, nmopportunity.com, any public and private partnerships that you've done in the past or done in the future, they can help you with TID districts or TIF districts. And more importantly, the wealth management community has a lot of high net worth individuals who are considering what to do with their money at the end of the year. So if you have any wealth managers in your city or community, you should reach out to them to figure out whether or not their business or their company has created an opportunity fund that can invest in their city. So once you get that, we talk about marketing your zones to the full ecosystem. The full ecosystem is where you want to spread it out. That's why you want to make sure you have a lead, because it's an all-day job sometimes. So you create an outreach database. This is the education part and the development part. Talk to the small businesses in the zones. You can find all that information from your business license database. Send out mailers, send out emails. Just let them know that there are opportunities for them to leverage growth in their business or in the community through some of these federal grants that are out there, especially the SBA. Again, I talked about the banks, wealth advisors, accountants, developers, commercial realtors, and other associations, neighborhood associations, etc. Get to know them, let them know what's happening in those census tracts. And then finally, the impact investors and foundations. Most of the foundations in the state, actually in most communities, are interested in investing in opportunity zone projects. And it may be just as small as a $10,000 loan guarantee. But do talk to them, because it might be ways where you can talk to people who have an opportunity and they just need that first tranche of money. Roadshow presentations, that's where I think once you've reached out to your target database in the ecosystem, get out there and talk to them. Made a list of all the places that you can start with. I have been working with Deb Burns at Invest US, and also have been working with the folks at Invest New Mexico. They are definitely being aggressive about investing in Santa Fe and around the state of New Mexico. So those are two partners in the state of New Mexico who would be great ones to talk to you about. How do I connect the fun to my opportunities in my city or community? Other leveraging opportunities, I can't stress enough, go to the state webpage and an opportunity. But also, if you get a copy of this deck, the city of Santa Fe is creating a dashboard for us so that we can prospect on behalf of our community realtors and developers, so that prospects, funders, etc., can see some of the projects that are going on in our community. And there's one more that I'd like to add that I forgot to put on my slide here, that if you are a podcast listener, I'm a Stitcher podcast listener, there is a podcast called Opportunity Zones Podcast. And he probably has 30 podcasts, and they're very informative. They're about 40 minutes each. So if you commute a long way, I would definitely go to that podcast, because he probably every 4 or 5 podcasts, he does listener questions, and they're really good. They really do inform you about resources you can tackle, people's examples of what they've done, cities' examples of what they've done, and make it Peter Rabbit simple about how the Opportunity Zones program works. And with that, there's my contact details, and thank you for the time.
Thanks, Rich. I had a question, because, I mean, one of the things that we have seen, and we keep talking about it, as you did too, is the need to create some type of a strategy and identify, where you're looking to develop projects. So when you all created your plan or your strategy, did you have to look outside for additional resources to pay for it? Did you have to pay for a plan? Can you talk a little bit about how you guys?
That's a good question. First and foremost, the mayor told us that we didn't have any money to spend on a fund. So we had to do it sort of a grassroots way. So what we did was we kind of went from sort of data out. We looked at the data, we looked at our census tracts, and we tried to figure out with our internal stakeholders, taking notes to say, here's what we think we need. We need housing. How does housing become a strategic asset for the city? So that means that maybe we have to change our overlays. Maybe we need to change our zoning permitting. Maybe we need to give incentives for housing to be done, right? So that built up our strategy around what we were going to have for our census tracts. if it was for a housing play. If it's for a business-related one, it was really more reaching out to the business and saying, how can we help you? What problems are you trying to solve? And maybe some of those problems that you're trying to solve are ones that either we can do internally or we can go out and find technical support for you from that standpoint. A good example is that we're trying to close on a food manufacturing plant, and we want to put it in an opportunity zone, but we also have the location of the land is where our public works tailings are, which are the road crap that comes off. They just dump it there. So we needed to figure out how to clean up the brownfield, find a new location for them, put the plant together, and then wonder if we could find extra funding to build out innovation ideas, food kitchen, co-working space, etc. So we're working through all these different partners to make that happen from a standpoint of getting the EPA involved and getting the state DOT involved, figuring out what we can do at the airport if we can get the FAA to release some of the land just to be used as a dump. And also looking at the state, we're looking at Ryan here and asking about making sure that we get leader grants that stack on to the capital that the company might need. So there are all these different varied things that happen, but it was a part of our strategy that says in this census tract, it's about manufacturing and industrial, and here's how it pulls out when we talk to our internal stakeholders and our external stakeholders.
Great.
Rich, my question to you is around the idea of sitting and waiting for a project to pop up versus going out there, boots on the ground, finding the project to pop up. So you spoke about the possibility of food manufacturing coming in and film industry expanding in the city of Santa Fe. What has the city of Santa Fe done to either go out there and look actively for projects that funds may want to invest in versus allowing the private sector to dictate on its own and you guys playing a more educational role in the deal itself?
I'd have to answer that in two different lanes. One lane is that as we looked at our census tract, there were some natural development opportunities there. So our Midtown campus, we had 64 acres of land. It had been redeveloped. It's inside of an opportunity zone. So it's attracting national interest, first developers, and then there'll be funds. And then secondly, what I've done in the department is that I have been available and active about connecting to all of the different resources that are out there to make sure that they recognize that Santa Fe has opportunities for growth and opportunities to invest. So we took two different ways. On our passive side, we looked at all the land that we had because we didn't have any funding money. We looked at all the land that we could develop within the zones. And then on the second side, I made it my task and my role to go out there and to evangelize Santa Fe as an opportunity zone city so that funders would know, wealth bankers would know. Really did a roadshow across the city two times so that people would know that if you had questions, there's a place you can come to. And then reach out to them. So it was a push and pull that we ultimately got to so that we could make sure that there's a signal being set.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We did get one question about referring to an RFP, and it's this is from Carl, but is that a requirement of the RFP? I wonder what does that...
So I don't know what Carl might be referring to, but I think he might be referring to our Midtown project.
Okay.
And it's under a procurement process right now where we had sent out requests for expressions of interest for the development, and we received all of the respondents on October 30th. So right now we're in an evaluation period. I call myself one of the sequestered jurors, but we're in this evaluation period where we're looking at all of the expressions of interest that came to us to redevelop and reimagine this 64-acre tract of land. But I want to add one thing that to what you said, talking about resources. So when we looked at this land, it was a very odd shape, and we realized that we could actually come to the state of New Mexico to see if we could do a land swap to make it more trapezoid or rectangular. So we had a partner in the state, General Services Division, who is working with us to build a land swap so that we can make it a more attractive piece of land within an opportunity zone. And they sort of put us to the front of the line because the state sees us as trying to develop inside of an opportunity zone where there will be jobs and commerce, et cetera, into the zone.
Great. All right, well, we're going to move on, and I do see a couple of questions come in, but we're going to bring those up a little bit later. We wanted to highlight some of the updated resources that have come online in the last couple of months. So one of those, it's a pretty good comprehensive article, came out in Forbes, but this is a list that they compiled, and they actually compiled it from some other inputs, but the top 20 OZ catalysts, and so they identified 10 innovative opportunity zone funds as well as community organizations, and it's a really good read, but it's kind of, you know, in Word, kind of what we're doing now and getting best practices from communities all over the country, as well as funds. So that's a great link to explore. It doesn't take too long to read it. And then EIG, obviously, who's one of the leaders in this whole program, has come out with an interactive map. And so hopefully you all have seen this. I know if you're on any type of Opportunity Zone newsletter, this was going around pretty rampantly, but you can look and see a map of all activity, and I use quotes around that because, you know, I don't think they're capturing everything, but it's a good attempt. You can see investments that have been made, a list or a map of funds, and a map of initiatives. So pretty fun to check out. You will see a blank kind of space around New Mexico, so we need to get busy around that. But it does help kind of connect resources if you're looking for national connections. Rich has already mentioned the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, but I think we mentioned this. I don't know if it had even come out at the forum in August, but this is a catalog that highlights every single federal program and what they're doing to incentivize opportunity zones. And you can click on that link and it'll take you to the catalog directly. But that's pretty handy. Have you said you had used it a bit, but that's where you're going to get connected to the SBA, the HUB program, the HUB Zone program, the EDA, and see what they're doing. You mentioned brownfields, what they're doing to incentivize these projects. We did want to highlight that we recently had met with the SBA about HUB zones, because they recently came out with an initiative to look at areas that have been qualified as opportunity zones that aren't currently designated hub zones. And so starting January 1st, they're opening it up to governors to submit these zones that we would like to petition them and suggest them going ahead and qualifying them as hub zones as well. And if you're not familiar, just really quickly, hub zones are a way that the federal government classifies a geographic area that is usually distressed economically or, you know, low income areas that give, once it's designated as a hub zone, then they're able, businesses located in that area are able to have a leg up when they're doing federal contracting. So a lot of opportunity zones obviously overlap with hub zones. So we have a few. We're able to nominate about 10%. And so that's really exciting in the contracting world, and we'll be working on that. If you have any feedback, go ahead and reach out to us.
And one of the things to that hub zone point, and you know, maybe this opens it up for discussion amongst yourselves, is looking at those businesses that now may qualify for a greater portion of federal contracting dollars, is that may allow them the opportunity to expand their business and do it in a two-faceted approach. So obviously this is something we would love to get feedback on. So please reach out to us if you have ideas or ways in which you want to look at this. Joanna and I are definitely open to all approaches.
So, that being said, we do want to highlight, obviously keep these ways to stay connected fresh in everyone's mind. But these are the ways to really get active within the state around opportunity zones. On our website, you'll see a row of icons that looks like this. This is where you can get information about the forum. I mentioned that our upcoming forum will be in March, probably at the end of March. That'll be in Albuquerque, and that's going to focus on a marketplace. So we will have resources and funds there with tables. If you have a project, if you have an idea, come to that event and you can speak directly with those folks. This is where you can sign up for the Opportunity Zone email list. Slowly, I think every day we get some folks that sign up for the email list, but this is where we're pushing out our projects that are being submitted to the project portal. So if you are a resource, if you are a fund, this is a way to write in your email, get a project that is looking for connection and looking for financing. So sign up for our email list. We do promote events, and sometimes we'll promote news updates through that. This is also where you can submit your Opportunity Zone project. This is how you get into our state database in the pipeline. And this is where you can sign up for webinars too.
Joanna was talking specifically about that Opportunity Zone submittal projects. I believe 2 weeks ago, Joanna and I met with a group of investors out of the Austin area who were looking to do about I think it was $100 million fund in the state of New Mexico in a few areas. And by having those projects listed and having access to the information that we have asked for, we're able to point these funds to these projects or specifics in a water reuse facility or things of that nature, where we're able to go, look, here's a project, they've identified it at the community level, the community supports this, here's something you're able to go in and do right away. So by having constant projects being submitted, it just allows different resources for Joanna and I or different individuals around the state to connect to the possibility of funding. So it is a heavy reliance on the communities and the individuals who may be doing projects to constantly stay in the loop, let us know what's going on, and submit those projects as they come in.
Great. So we wanted to use this opportunity. If you have specific questions, go ahead and type them in, and we'll answer those questions. And apologies again about the technology blurb that we had with the audio, but hopefully it sounds like, or it looks like you guys can hear us okay now. But we did have a question come in, and this is more kind of geared toward you, Rich, about the value of, this is a really good point, and it goes into kind of what we're seeing nationally about the value of streamlining the permitting and entitlement around, a zone or, it's plug and play type of idea. So can you talk a little bit about the value or your experiences with that so far?
As I joined in on Opportunity Zones program, as I sat in with my internal stakeholders in land use, I learned about the types of overlays that we had in the city. We have a very big one in an Opportunity Zone that shares 2 tracts that has lots of incentives. And then what the land use permitting group has been doing is trying to figure out how we can create or emulate or replicate some of that overlay information to the rest of our zones, because it is an issue, especially when it comes to housing, because some of them are very thin margins when you have percentages of affordable housing that you put in there. So that we recognize that if we're looking at districts that are I2 and we want to change some of it to R29, the land use people need to sort of rethink what that overlay is and then help us get it through our city council process. So that's kind of the process we have, where right now we have enough overlays in our districts, but some of them are all I2s, which is industrial, and we want to change some of the edges of it to maybe C2s, which is the sort of ideal zoning district. And so we look at, the land use folks looks at the map and figures out where we could layer that out. And then we are bringing it to the city council to get an ordinance change for the zoning law that's there, or the zoning permits that's there.
And I do want to say, too, that you don't just have to share questions. Feel free to type best practices that you found in your community, challenges that you had, frustrations. Feel free to type those in. I see some good questions coming in. You want to take
one of the questions I have for Rich, as well as anyone on the phone here, please feel free to jump in, is the plan itself, whether it's for the city or a small community, how important is that plan towards the opportunity zone? When you guys are looking at developments, is that plan something you really want to see at the forefront? So you would recommend a community who may not have a plan to really sit down and strategize on what they have and what's best available to them. So can you speak a little to the planning phase for a community that may not be the same size as the city of Santa Fe?
Yes, we're a tiny little city, by the way, if you haven't seen the speck of dust of us on the map. But yeah, so I think from a plan standpoint, for a small town, I would say for a small community, I would look at taking on just one census tract and building from there and finding out what your needs are. If your need is you need housing, then go the housing route. Go to the internal stakeholders and figure out how you can make housing development really easy. If you're trying to recruit businesses or you're trying to expand businesses, I'd say, again, find one space. And if you have city land, you have more assets than most of the folks that think about opportunity zones, because some cities don't have funds, money that they can put in a fund. But if you have land, you already are a step ahead where you can strategically turn it into some sort of development and offer a LEDA grant on top of it, or put the land that says it's a 99-year lease for $1 because you really want to develop this land. So you can find ways to be strategic with your pieces of land that you have as your asset. It's a big asset, so that's where I'd say is a way to create a plan if you're a small community. If you're going the housing route like we did, go housing. But if you're looking at expanding businesses or starting up businesses or luring in businesses, look at your assets that you have in those opportunity zones and make them attractive to people that are there. Look at go to your commercial realtor organizations, find out if they have any shovel-ready projects. Work with them, make them your partner, so that when you think about connecting housing and businesses, that they may find ways too, because most of their customers have money, and so that's another way for you to find out if there's any additional funding sources.
Great. And I do want to take the opportunity to just highlight that there are funding programs out there to pay for a plan that are available.
Yes, that's right.
EDA has come out and said that they're really eager to look at projects that identify within a larger economic development plan. If you're highlighting your opportunity zone strategy, or you're highlighting opportunity zones. USDA, CDBG, NMFA, there are a variety of folks, HUD, that will help you coordinate and fund a plan if you want to go that route.
And a great place to go and ask for that would probably be Fund It, correct?
And again, Fund It meets quarterly, but you could just reach out to the state and we can just help we could point you to that information even sooner than having to come to a meeting. But we're going to take a few more questions. One of them came in and it's asking about, let me get this, most opportunity zone programs are opportunity zone property centric or exclusive. What is being done to increase direct individual business support for businesses located within OZ?
So one of the programs that the state oversees, and in particular our office oversees, is an angel investment program in which qualified individuals invest a qualified amount into a qualified business. So one of the things that our office is starting to look at doing, we've taken the approach of let's reach out to these businesses to see if they're expanding. But I think the approach that we're going to start beginning during the new calendar year is let's reach out to these businesses to see if they're looking for different types of investment that may not just be angel investors, that are actual opportunity fund investors, because a lot of these businesses are in the high-tech startup phase in which angel investors are coming in early, and they tend to pop in a good sense of they develop a great product and it becomes commercial very quickly. So how can we connect them to the right funding sources? So that's one of the initiatives that we're working with internally through connecting with not only our regional reps and our Office of Science and Technology, but connecting the businesses to the investors themselves. So maybe putting their projects or their business on a business portal that we have that are seeking investment.
I'd also like to add, Ryan, if I could, that if you're a small community, keep in mind that the SBA is very interested in coming to your community to talk to businesses about business expansion, especially in opportunity zones. So that's another area that you can look for technical assistance, have someone on the ground. I think John Garcia is the guy that's in Albuquerque for us. But there's someone on the ground, and they'd be more than happy to come in, do a roadshow, do a presentation. They're looking to excite business growth in opportunity zones. And so if you're a small city or town, I'd say that the SBA would be a place to call, to find out how opportunity zones and funding in those zones could affect businesses through the SBA.
And to that point, economic development department and a lot of economic developers themselves tend to focus on that mindset of e-base and manufacturing. Opportunity zones aren't tied solely to e-base or manufacturing. There are retail shops that are looking for investment, or there are mom and pop laundromats that could be seeking investment, and being able, like Rich was saying, to bring in that SBA advisor and speak to the community doesn't have to be particularly wrapped around e-base. It can encompass the entire community itself.
Right. And it kind of leads, this talking point leads to a question that was asked about, is there a recommendation for a small community to locate investors for a physician that would like to locate in our community? They have a small amount of money in their LEDA budget, but not enough to assist the individual. But it begs the point that we get inquiries all the time from businesses, you might call them mom and pop shops or the retail industry, that are, they hear that they're in an opportunity zone, they're looking for funding, and we have to kind of talk through that constantly. And the answer that we come up with is, especially if it's a smaller business, opportunity zone program might not be the best fit, but there are plenty of other opportunities and resources out there that we could talk through and assist the community or the business to connect with. And so that's where we keep, repeating it, but reach out to the department. Let's, utilize Fund It. You can go that route. We have a new tool called the Business Finance Finder that you can submit your project online, and then, whatever amount of money that you're looking for, and then that gets shot out to lenders. So I would encourage you, and I think, Mary, you're the one asking that, reach out to us, call us, let's explore it, look a little bit further, and even if Opportunity Zone program isn't the best fit, there's plenty of other options that are out there too that we can
And
find.
Jonah, can I add one thing? This is Mary. So Mary, one of the two places I think you should add on, because this is a really cool question, is that if your community really needs an extra physician, you're looking to expand the healthcare and wellness of your neighborhood, I would go to a foundation or an impact investor, because that's where they'll put a lot of money in. And you as a community may have a location that you could put a simple lease on, because that might be a community need, and this is what the Opportunity Zones program is all about. So I would say, look for the foundations in your greater 50-mile area and reach out to them, and you'd be surprised how interested they might be in participating in making sure that your community gets that physician to open up their medical store.
And that actually is I feel like answering Candace's question, because she is getting at kind of a similar idea of how would you locate a residential treatment center that deals with a detox facility in an opportunity zone. So you're basically talking about a similar concept, but this has a social impact.
Yeah.
And so those community foundations, the impact investors, those are the groups that are looking for, or I should say not focused on the market return, but they're looking for the social impact. But the answer is still the same. Reach out to us. We can look at Fund It and really brainstorm around what are all the options that are out there on the table and make those connections for you. And we did get a question. Hi, Deborah. About making comments, and unfortunately the format is it's not where the
Unmute.
yeah, everyone's on mute is what I'm trying to say. So if you do have a comment, go ahead and type it in, and we'll share that with the group. And let's see, we'll take about 2 more questions because we want to be cognizant of everybody's time. Let's see, so can you share, this is from Lisa, can you share any experiences or ideas for projects with vacant buildings in historic districts in rural communities where small businesses are, more realistic over industrial or manufacturing? So this is a big
I'll start first from the economist side. I'll put on my economist hat, and Rich highlighted it great, is using the data that is available to you. Not trying to fit a square project in a round community. You really have to see what the community needs are and identify that through readily available data, whether that's through the Census Bureau, Bureau of Economic Analysis and Labor Statistics. So you're able to see what the community need is and how best to fill that with vacant land or a vacant piece of property. And then take that approach out to where Rich can step in or a city itself can step in and start going, okay, what is in place or what plan is in place, what overlay is in place in terms of the community zone itself.
I would say just to that, as an idea, you have that vacant land in a historic district. If that's the city's property or community property, I would find someone who would want to lease it out as a co-working space, just to promote small business growth. Like, let someone have an office for 6 months for free, just to get traffic downtown and to get business opportunities. And if it's inside of an opportunity zone, you'll be surprised how much funding you will attract to it if you start with that, especially if it's just an empty building and you're using it for a business growth opportunity. Again, this is an SBA thing. I think HUD would be more than happy to talk to you about it. But if you're looking to spur some excitement downtown, that might be one way that you could look at that empty building if it's city land and say, for $1 a year, we're going to let some guy come in or some person come in and turn it into a co-working / coffee house and let businesses incubate there for 6 months at a time.
And I'll just say, jump in and say that actually the New Mexico Partnership has just unrolled their new website, and they are looking to put vacant real estate on there. So that might be a good fit, too, to go ahead and tap into that. If you go to newmexicopartnership.org, I think they're creating a database of vacant real estate.
One of the things, too, that I would recommend as well, and again, take this with a grain of salt because as the data will show you, each community has different needs, is also having plans that are administration-proof or mayor-proof, plans that can live on and be implemented on long past the city councilor, a mayor, an administration itself. Because the last thing you want to do is put time, effort, energy, and resources into a project that is not adopted by the community itself. And then a new group comes in and it's killed. So you really want to focus on those needs of the community. And it's easy to point to the data and say, well, let's take this approach and we're only going to look at it through this lens. And it's sometimes best to have that lead who is in charge of opportunity zones take a step back, present a basic plan of, here's what I'm thinking. Am I missing anything in this plan itself? Should we explore this avenue as well? And just have an approach that is ready, because the last thing you want to do is build something so specific that it meets one person's need and that one person may never show up.
Good point. And I wanted to add one thing to the idea of doing projects in a historic area. there has been quite a bit of movement about developers looking at how they can cobble together the historic tax credits with opportunity zones. So we could explore that further too and get some expert opinion on that. So let's see. We had a comment come in from Deborah Burns about, and she is a fund manager with InvestUS, but she was getting to the point about as a fund manager, looking at projects with a responsibility of not just focusing on that one project. Let's see if I can, the development of a comprehensive long-term OZ development plan is critical to assuring a developer, business, or investor not only the project will be successful, but the entire area. And she is also making the point that the EPA is seeking opportunities to fund environmental issues with opportunity zones. And this is hitting at something really exciting that we kind of touched on it, but, and Rich talked about brownfields, but we are so dying to do a project that's a brownfields project. And I saw Rebecca Cook was online, who is with the Environment Department, which runs the brownfields projects for the state, our program for the state. And just if you can take away one point from this webinar that we're getting at is if you are working on projects, if you're working on development projects, just have it on the tip of your tongue. Is this in an opportunity zone? Is this a brownfield? All those typical questions that can maybe leverage different programs. But thanks for making that point. Did you want to say something on that?
Yeah, one question I would actually like to ask the group of people listening is when we're doing these webinars, going forward, we would love to have your feedback on future webinars. Joanna and I, we're fortunate enough to have Rich come in today, but we have made connections throughout the state with individuals and different companies who have specific expertises, whether it's through marketing or planning. We would love to hear your feedback, so it's not just Joanna and I and a guest who we think is super interesting.
And asked several times.
We'd love to hear your guys' feedback because the last thing we want to do is have this become repetitive. We've explored options of and just to throw out ideas to kind of get the brain cells firing is how do you market? So do we bring in a marketing expert to kind of talk about ways in which you can market a fund or a project or a community itself? Do we bring in the partnership so we can talk about ways to attract manufacturers or relocations from other businesses? So please feel free to jump in on the comments and send that, or send it directly to Joanna or myself of different ideas that you would like to hear that may address not only your need, but other needs within the community.
Great. And then we'll take, we had one question about this page that we wanted to kind of stop on so it'll sink into everybody's head. But this Get Connected portion, this can be found on nmopportunity.com, and that's our state website. nmopportunity.com. And then we did have a comment come in. I don't want to skip over it, but there are funds specifically in New Mexico. Invest New Mexico is looking for specifically projects in rural communities for ag projects. So again, one of the ways that you can get out and get connected to those funders are submit your project through our portal. So we're a little bit over time. So wanted to highlight some upcoming NMEDD events. We have our Fundit meeting coming up in March. That'll be the last day in March, so you can go ahead and apply for that. You can tune into our webinar series. Ryan mentioned that we're always looking for good topics. We actually have a channel on our YouTube page that highlights a lot of these different topics. We did a webinar today on housing development and had some MFA was speaking. Really good information. New markets tax credits, brownfields, a lot of different areas that fit directly into opportunity zone development. Here is our Opportunity Zones Marketplace. We're unrolling that date today. Might change a little bit, but you can go ahead and register. It'll be sometime in March. We don't want to compete too much with spring break, but know that that's coming. Know that that'll be there. go ahead and sign up for it. One of the questions I think that got asked from Carl was, what are we doing to assist businesses? We have our collateral assistance program. This is a great way for businesses that are trying to get a commercial loan. If they have a shortfall in collateral, the state can come in and purchase a CD to fill that gap. So that's a really valuable tool, I think, that when we're looking at business development, that's available. We are doing a finance fair. This is our what would you call it? The Central New Mexico, Central New Mexico. It's been a long day of webinars. Sorry. Central New Mexico Finance Fair, and that'll be on the 16th of January. We're going to have that at the Electric Playhouse. This is much like the similar format of an Opportunity Zone Forum or the Marketplace, but if you're a business or if you know a business that is interested in getting a commercial loan, you can come to this event and we'll have over 30 different lenders and business resources that are there that can help you with financing. They're in one spot, and it's at Electric Playhouse at their new location, so it's a chance to check that out. They're going to provide lunch. It's a lot of fun. We had one in Taos. A lot of fun and a lot of good connections are made, so you can come and shop your deal and meet lenders. Want to remind everyone that the New Mexico legislative session is coming up. A couple of days. Ryan is so excited, our economist. It's a time where state employees get kind of crazy. But if you have questions, about certain bills or bills that affect small businesses or economic growth, reach out to us. I'm sure Ryan would love the input. But we'll send this out. It'll have live links. So we hope to see you at some of them. Want to point out, these are our regional reps. These are the gateway, the boots on the ground, the folks that are representing the department in your regions of the state. They are ready to go, ready to help, ready to answer your questions. New Mexico Main Street is a fantastic organization there in our department. The question that was about, what do I do with vacant buildings on my Main Street, my historic area? They are experts at talking about that topic. So reach out to them. Here is my contact. Here's Ryan's contact. Here's that website again, nmopportunity.com. Here's the finance team and then our overall website. So we hope that this was informative for you. The idea is that you are not alone. We are, we have some fancy technology with our slideshow. But you're not alone. Reach out. There's resources. We're ready to help, and we're ready to lift each other up, as Rich is exhibiting. He's in Santa Fe and representing the city, but wants to see all the communities and all the regions successful in this, as well as the different funds and different organizations that we have. So reach out to us. Have happy holidays, and we hope to see any parting
Thank
comments?
you, guys. Appreciate you taking the time out of your days, and happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Yes, and one more final thing. If you have ideas of what you want to see, just want to reiterate to reach out to us, and we'll consider those. So again, thank you so much. Thanks to Rich, and have a great holiday. Happy New Year.